Hey everybody, this is the video a lot of you's been looking forward to. I'm going to do a comparison of my thoughts between the Kubota M6060 and this John Deere 5067E. Some of you may not have been with the channel, but most of you probably, even if you're new subscribers recently, have figured it out that I owned a Kubota M6060 previously. Had 2,300 and some hours on it, and the tractor had been absolutely amazing. Like, it had done everything I wanted it to do. Very dependable. I had to replace some bearings in the front axles. The only mechanical repairs I'd ever done to it, and that was at about 2,000 hours. I decided to go ahead and trade because of the particulate filter. It's going to have to be something done with around 3,000 hours or so, and we've been through this in the past. There's a video showing why I traded kind of back about a month ago, so you can go back and check it out if you want to. But we're going to focus today on the likes and dislikes and advantages and disadvantages. First of all, I've got a lot of hate over this. Not a lot, but some hate over the John Deere, which I kind of expected to happen. Especially with the Mexico deal and the what do they call that, the DEI thing or whatever, which I'm not a fan of myself either. So people say, well, you know, I wouldn't buy the Mexico junk and this and that. Actually, the 5E, this tractor was built in India as far as I know, and I don't know. My response to those people is, you know, what kind of tractor are you running, or would you buy new that is made in America? I don't really know any that is 100% built in the United States. Some of the bigger stuff might actually still be in John Deere, but and some of the other brands, but the majority of this stuff's outsourced somewhere. I'm not real afraid of the India stuff. That farm track I've had for years, and it's been a dependable tractor. And them people over in India, if you ever watch them on YouTube, they use and abuse their machines. So you know, they know tractors, and they use them for everything. They're their vehicles, they're their heavy machinery. I mean, they use tractors for everything over there. So moving on from that subject, some things that are noticeably different is the transmission. Has 3 ranges and 4 gears in each range, and it's a power shuttle or power reverser, so it's an electric switch that activates your reverser. The Kubota was a high and a low with 4 gears, so you had 8 gears. This one has 12, and it was a hydraulic shuttle. Personally, I like the hydraulic shuttle better. It was a mechanical linkage. It didn't have the electric switch. Basically the same principle. Both tractors are. But the Kubota was a mechanical linkage without the electric switch. It had an actual mechanical linkage on the clutch. This one's an electric switch on the clutch pedal. And I like the mechanical aspect of the Kubota better. Both function similar. This one's got a little more delay. The Kubota was a little quicker to shift forward or in reverse. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. I don't really know that I can say I like one over the other better as far as their functioning, except for I do like the mechanical on the Kubota because you have less to tear up. Now, on the main transmission, the 3 ranges versus 2 ranges and 4 gears in each, so 8-speed versus 12-speed. I definitely like this 12-speed. The mid-range on this tractor is good for about any type of work you'll do. High range basically is a road gear, or if you're moving fast through a field, maybe carrying round bales and that type of thing. I don't even know that I would ever mow in first gear high range on this tractor because of it's pretty fast. You have a pretty high gear that's a little faster on the road. With this tractor, it'll run about 22 miles an hour. Kubota was about 19, I think. and so a little better fuel consumption. When you hit a hill, you're going to have to downshift though, because it's just too high around here for it. But I don't know, I have mixed emotions. You know, it's going to take a little more time on the transmissions and that type of thing to know what I like and what I don't like. This power reverser, if you do something a little too fast or in the wrong sequence, sometimes you'll have to go back to neutral, give it a few seconds, and then put it back and forward to reverse to get it to go. And the Kubota, it was just always, you put it in forward, it was going, put it in reverse, it was going. So just something to think about if you're comparing the two models. Both have tilt steering. The Kubota has a locking park brake on the foot pedals. John Deere has a parking gear. I like the parking gear pretty good right now. I've heard of people breaking that parking gear. I'm trying to be careful with it. On steep places, I'll set my loader down and try to get it anchored, and whatever I've got on the back before I put it in park. That way they're holding most of the load. The park acts as a safety. The park and brake on the Kubota, it worked good, but I always had that fear of it popping loose, because I've had them happen on other tractors, and not necessarily it. I always set my loader down on it the same way, just to be extra cautious. I wish both brands would go to two functioning parking system, a locking brake and a park in the transmission both. I would feel a lot better about. Personally, I like the pull handles that lock. I had a Massey Ferguson a few years ago that had the pull handle that locked both your pedals. It snapped in good. I trusted it. That's one style brake I did like. But I think they should have both, because when this tractor's, even if the engine turned off, in the same way with the Kubota, they will still roll even if they're in gear. They're not going to hold themselves. A 9-speed transmission on the John Deere will hold itself in gear, but then you're not in park. So, but you know, just things to think about. Electric PTO switch. Same thing. Kubota had electric PTO switch. This one has electric 4-wheel drive. I would just as soon have the pull lever personally, but the electric's good while it's working. It had the park brake, or not the park brake, but the switch on the pedals where when you hit the brakes, it would go in 4-wheel drive. I overrode that on this tractor. I hated that feature. It drove me crazy. The M6060 and 7060s, they don't have that. I think the 7060 and a 12-speed might, so that's something to think about. It's a safety feature, but I didn't like it. Next, 3-point hitch. The Kubota, it had the external lift cylinders to help assist in the lifting. That looks like a good strong feature, but so far this 3-point hitch has plenty of strength, and I like the geometry of the 3-point hitch on the John Deere's better than the Kubota, and the draft control works better on the John Deere than the Kubota. We've had the 5045 for a couple years now, and it lifts everything high off the ground. It sets it down level when it sets it down. The Kubota, a lot of times, if you got it to where it was setting right when it was let down, when you lift it up, the tail of whatever you was raising up would go down instead of it lifting higher. And the geometry is set up pretty perfect on the 3-point hitch on these John Deeres. I like the sway bars on the John Deere. It's got a little better fine adjustments. A little slower to use probably than the Kubota, because you have to twist it to get it sometimes where you want it. But it holds it in place a little better, and you can kind of fine-tune both sides to match better. Single remotes on both tractors. Fuel tank is on the rear of this tractor. It was underneath on the Kubota, but it's both on the field from the back. This one has the axle housings that go all the way to the wheels. The Kubota has a little shaft that sticks out past the axle housing. No fault to either one. This adds a little more weight probably. It's got sight glass for the hydraulic fluid down there. The Kubota had a dipstick. I like the sight glass because hydraulic oil is hard to see on a dipstick sometimes if the lighting is not right. I like the arm adjustments. These here will pull out and go up and down both. The Kubota will pull out, but they won't go up and down. That makes it pretty easy to hook stuff up right there. So that's one thing I definitely like better, is the 3-point hitch geometry and the way things hook up and the way things lift and let down on the John Deere over the Kubota. What are we going to talk about next? Let's talk about the front axle. Okay, this one on the John Deere, you've got a planetary, so you've got a planetary gear in here with a drive shaft coming into it that has universal joints. There's universal joints back in that hub, in that knuckle. The Kubota had a bevel gear style system where it come out down, and you had a big gear or bull gear, I don't know what you'd call it, with a small one that was on your axle spindle that come out to your wheel. That gives you a lot better turning radius on the Kubota. John Deere, the turning radius isn't as good, but it's not horrible. It's still decent, but the Kubota probably will have the best turning radius of any tractor that size on the market. Dependability, probably, unless you have trouble with the universal joints, the John Deere front axle will hold up better, because I did have those bearing failures in the Kubota, and I think that was just because of that way that four-wheel drive setup was designed. The bearings was taking a lot of extra stress. Neither are really a bad setup, and they both have advantages and disadvantages. The Kubota turned better as a four-wheel drive tractor than even any two-wheel drive tractor I've ever used. But like I said, this one's not horrible, but not hardly as good. Serviceability, I feel like the John Deere is probably a little easier to service, because you can change the fuel filters are pretty easy to get to, which they are on the Kubota too. Oil filter and all that. The engine, you only have one drain plug on the John Deere. The Kubota has 2 drain plugs on the engine oil. None of that's a big deal. The advantage I do like is this hydraulic filter right here. You can change without losing all your fluid. On the Kubota, you would dump a lot of fluid unless you had some kind of a vacuum pump to hold that suction on it. You got a little more vulnerability on your hoses here, but I so far have been, I mean, it's there where you can see it. You can kind of watch that and make sure you don't catch something. But it would be easy to stick a tree limb through there and tear something up. So the Kubotas was setting back inside of there, but it was harder to hook and unhook your hoses than this one. So there again, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. I got the skid steer style coupler on this loader. We'll talk about the loader next. They have global, the John Deere style, and the skid steer. I wanted the skid steer because it's more universal for everything that people use. Now, when I first started using this loader, I thought it wouldn't lift as good as the Kubota, and here's why. With the Kubota, if you got a hold of something heavy and went to lift it, instead of the loader stalling out most of the time as far as it lifting up this way, it'd bring one of the back wheels off the ground, or even both. This one wouldn't do that. Well, the loader would sort of stall out, but the back wheels wouldn't come up. But when you went to curl it, you could bring the back wheels up if it was something really heavy. And it kind of disappointed me in the beginning. But the more I've used it, I realized this loader is probably actually a little bit stronger lifting, and definitely has more curl strength. So like using a stump bucket or using forks and trying to pick up something and curl it up, the John Deere 500M loader will definitely outlift the LA 1154. They're pretty similar probably as far as the actual boom lift. The John Deere, I feel like, got just a little more. But here's the kicker. The John Deere, there's nothing that I have lifted yet where I felt unstable. I have picked up some loads that made me feel a little uncomfortable because of what I was used to in the past, but it's never, a back wheel has not come off the ground yet, except for when I've curled, I caught something curling and I could kind of rock it up a little bit. As far as a load you can actually pick up and carry, it's planted to the ground. I don't know how much weight difference there are between the rear of this tractor and the rear of the Kubota, but they are a noticeable difference. I have the same wheel weights on this tractor and the same counterweight on the 3-point hitch as I had the Kubota, exact same ones. This one has a little bigger rear tire, might add some extra fluid, but still I think it's actually just a little bit heavier tractor most likely. Some of these come with the 520M, but personally I like the 500M. It's short, back close to the tractor, it's got plenty of lift, plenty of curl, and that type of thing. The Kubota was very easy to dual function with the controls. Their control system set up perfect. This John Deere is a little harder to get to where you can dual function, and it don't dual function as smoothly. So you're kind of trading off some lift and curl strength on the Kubota for better controls and faster movement as well. This one, you've got a little slower movement, not hardly as good at controls, but better lift, better curl. So then again, there's not the best of both worlds in either one of them. This one, the cylinders are bigger diameter, which I'm sure slows the speed down on the loader itself. The dump is what aggravates me, I guess, more than any of the things I've mentioned. It's a little bit slow to dump. The Kubota will dump the bucket about half the time that this one will, according to the specs. So you can take this lever once the hydraulics are warm. You can't do it when the hydraulics are cold, but once the hydraulics are warmed up, you can shove this lever all the way hard to the right and it will dump faster. I found that out. It's got like a little stop, and you can go past that stop and it'll dump faster. But the controls are limbering up and getting easier to use, and I'm getting more used to it as well. Some people say they don't like this T-bar style handle. I've actually kind of got to where I like it pretty good. The knob though on the Kubota, you know, it was pretty easy to use as well, so there ain't no advantage or disadvantage in my opinion to the actual handles of the controls. It's just the way they function. But I wish that John Deere could get their controls to work as smooth as the Kubota does in combination with the extra lift and curl that this tractor has. Horsepower, it does fine so far. It's kind of, it likes to be up close to the 1500 range though. It's not a low RPM lugging tractor, which I kind of knew that because the 5045 is the same way. 1500 and RPMs and above is its sweet spot. It actually likes 1500 about the best. It's 15 to 1800 RPMs if you're doing loader work and that type of thing. I'm anxious to use it in the hay. That's when I can really tell the tale on the horsepower and things, belling and mowing and that type of stuff. But for anything I've done so far, horsepower's been plenty significant. Getting some snow blowing through the roof vent up there on the shop. I don't know if y'all can see it falling or not. Trying to think of what else. I do like the bigger tires on this one, which Kubotas went to bigger tires now. I guess the big selling point to the John Deere over the Kubota for me was the John Deere has a diesel oxidation catalyst system instead of a particulate filter that regens. How that will do long term, I don't know, but so far I'm liking it. It's just going to be, that's one of them things. I never really had a problem with the Kubota particulate filter other than it's getting, they fill up with ash content that has to be cleaned out. This catalyst system, you're not going to get as much ash content in it hardly, and there's not as much restriction. Like, it's a small little thing compared to a big boxy filter on the particulate filter that regens. And you know, when you're ready to cut the tractor off, you can cut it off. You don't have to worry about it regenning and that type of thing. So most tractors now have went to the catalyst system, and I feel like they do that because that is a better system. I wish Kubota would go that way and go away from the particulate filter. 3-cylinder engine. Kubota's a 4-cylinder engine. You know, the Kubota's a little smoother running probably. It don't have as much rattles and stuff. This sounds more like an old school diesel engine than the Kubota did. I don't know. So far, I'm liking it. Have I regretted trading the Kubota? Not yet. I'm Pretty satisfied with the size and weight of this tractor, how well it pulls, how well it lifts, the way it handles the load that it lifts is what I'm most impressed with. Like I said, I love the 3-point hitch on a John Deere. They work the way I think they should work. Sort of like the Massey Ferguson 245. I always felt like it hooked up right, raised up right, and let down right, and that's the way these are. I like the setup on those, and the draft works really good. A John Deere draft control works better than any tractor I've been on, except for an old school Massey Ferguson when you're plowing. I don't know. I can't think of much else to cover at the moment. I have no complaints with the Kubota. If you buy a Kubota M series tractor, you are a smart person. If you buy a Kubota or a John Deere 5E tractor, I can't say that there's anything wrong with that either. Right now, you know, those two tractors, they're priced a little high compared to some of these other off-brand things and stuff, but I feel like you're getting a good machine with a John Deere or a Kubota. I'm not going to knock either one of them. You know, you see a lot of TYMs and stuff out there right now on YouTube and things, but you just don't have the dealer support, I don't think, with those as you do with a Kubota or a John Deere. You're always going to be able, well, I don't know about always, but you're going to be a lot easier finding parts for a John Deere or Kubota and finding somebody that's trained to actually work on them and not just some flunky like me off the street going in there being a mechanic. So just be cautious of those things. Sometimes saving money is not the best. I could have bought a Mahindra 6065 over here at Pound with a cab for close to what I paid for this, but you just don't have the dealer backing that you would have, I don't think, with the John Deere. But yeah, I covered in my last video a couple of issues I had with this one that I fixed myself, and hopefully, you know, if I ever have any big issues, the dealership will be easy to work with. And just don't know. I've never experienced that. I never had to take my Kubota to the shop. Anything that was done to it, I did. And that's a big deal, though, if you do have to have something major done. But fingers crossed, we don't have to have nothing major ever done. But John Deere 5067E 500M loader. Pretty well satisfied with it. More than I thought I would be, especially now that I've got them brakes to where they're not putting it in 4-wheel drive, and got that turbo intercooler boots tightened up. The engine runs smoother and a lot better than it was in the beginning. I thought I was having some issues, which still might, I don't know, but I think it's took care of the problem. But anyways, let me know your thoughts. If you have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. You can email me questions on either tractor. I will help you in any way I can, give you advice on a Kubota or a John Deere 5E or a Kubota M series, because they are good tractors. Some people say I'm die-hard Kubota, and I understand that. I mean, you know, not that I am, they are. They're die-hard Kubota, and I understand that. I mean, they're a good tractor, dependable and everything, but you do have a little more weight here. That's what they told me I would. They said you might not need those wheel weights, but I wanted to be extra safe with the things I do, and it is heavier. I wished I could have weighed the Kubota and this one just to see what they weigh, but compared to each other, set up the same. But anyways, hope y'all have a good one. It's been a long video. I hope it's been worthwhile, and we will update you again once we get into some actual haying operation, and I'll give you my thoughts probably towards the end of June and on how things are going then. But y'all take care, and we'll talk to you later.